Fantastic. So guys, thanks very much for your time. I know it's always an issue to try and hop onto a webinar, and the last thing you want to do is sometimes listen to some guy warble on for an hour, but we really appreciate that you've made the time and effort to do so. And I think that gives us a bit of a sense of your interest in sales. My name is Yendor Felgate. With me today is my business partner, Magriet Mouton. We'll be co-hosting this session to take you through the latest Gallup Strength Report. And it's everything to do today about sales, how the role of sales has changed in the marketplace, why we think talents, your innate traits, and the development of your talents and strengths is the best way to develop your salespeople. And then also a little bit about the Gallup Strength Report that's just been launched, about how it identifies the strengths of a salesperson, and it gives some great insights about how to use their strengths to be effective salespeople. And then Magriet will give you some examples around, if you're also a sales manager or a team lead, a little bit about how strengths can provide great insights to help you to get the best out of your salespeople. So the way that we think about this session is really thinking about how can we help you to develop sales excellence with your sales team and your individual salespeople. The key message that we're going to leave you with today, regardless of all the great tools and insights we're going to provide, is there's no one right way of selling. The ability to connect with your customer in a way that makes sense to them is the great X factor when it comes to good sales. And the best way to connect with a customer is to understand what they need from you and how you can use what you have, your natural gifts and talents, to meet those requirements. And it's that combination that we are so excited about in terms of why we think the Gallup Sales Strength Report is so neat. Magriet, if you could just give us a PowerPoint, then we could kick off with that. As Magriet's doing that, guys, just remember you are welcome to use the chat button. You can shout out, you can raise your hand at any stage and ask questions as we go along. Magriet?
Yeah, Yendor, it's, let me just see, here we go. Yep, there we go.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Right, so we've entitled this webinar, Knowing Your Strengths Can Change the Way You Approach Sales. So the principle here is that if you understand your strengths, which is unique to you as an individual, as unique as your DNA or your fingerprint, you can come up with a way of connecting with your customers that makes much more sense than trying to copy people in your team to try and be the next Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Richard Branson of sales, and really to play to what you can bring to the party in a way that's authentic to you. So knowing your strengths can change the way that you approach sales. Thanks, Magriet. So my name is Yendor Felgate, and as you can see, I'm the devilishly handsome person on the left-hand side, and with me today is Magriet Mouton, my business partner. We are Gallup certified strength coaches. We coach right across the Africa piece. We work with teams, we develop salespeople, and we certify Gallup coaches. We were what they call a Gallup strategic licensee for the Africa piece. What's perhaps a little bit more interesting when we talk about strengths, you can see my top 5 strengths are just behind me. My first strength is achiever. Achiever doesn't mean success, it means completion, and so we will execute on this task. My second strength is deliberative. Deliberative is really about a concern around risk and anticipating risk and what could go wrong. So for example, if you're standing and on a ledge and you're about to bungee jump, deliberative is the type of person that would make sure that the bungee cord is safely attached to your legs. So pretty cool strength from that point of view. Then I have learner. Learner for me is about curiosity. It's about learning about others, and I often use that to build relationships. Strategic, for me, that's about optionality. So strategic in the strength world doesn't mean Michael Porter's 5 forces model and all that MBA stuff that we learned at business school, but rather it's about seeing patterns, connecting, coming up with ways of thinking about things that offer optionality. And today, in the next hour, I'm going to share as much about the different ways of thinking about strengths and sales as we can possibly come up with. And then my last top 5 strength is ideation. Ideation is exactly what it said on the box. It's all about, I'm the type of person that you bring to a brainstorm. So we'll be sharing some ideas around how to think about and use the new Gallup Strength Sales Report. That's a little bit about me and my top 5 strengths, and you'll see as we facilitate, those will roll out in the way that I've described. Magriet, can you bring your top 5 to life, please?
Yeah, thanks, Yendor. So, hello to everyone who is joining us. My name is Magriet Mouton, as Yendor was saying, and my top 5 strengths starts with individualization. People with individualization are intensely curious about what motivates people, what gets them excited, and where their potential lies. And that's probably the reason why I do what I do. Secondly, I've got learner, same as Yendor, but I think the application is a bit different, as I absolutely love to learn about new technology, and as I mentioned, what makes people who they are. So I use my learner to get to know people a bit better. Then I've got belief, which got nothing to do with religion, but everything to do with values. So there's things that I feel very passionate about. Purpose is a big theme in my life, and that's the values that I bring. Then I've got connectedness, and people with connectedness, they put they can see consequences to decisions that are made. It's almost like seeing puzzle pieces coming together when they work with people, and that's how I use mine as well. You know, where does everything fit together? People with maximizer love to take people from average to excellent, and I love the coaching that we do. And I think, Yendor, if I can just add this is what makes me, as someone who's got maximizer, so excited about the new CliftonStrengths sales report, because I think, you know, from what I've seen there, what I read, and how personalized it was for me, I mean, it was spot on for me. I just get so excited in how this new report can help people to become better from average to excellence. Over to you.
Thanks, Magriet. It always amazes me how much energy you can derive from talking about your strengths, right? Guys, in terms of the introduction, you would have noticed that Magriet and myself have very different strength profiles. So it is unrealistic to expect us to sell in the same way. In our business, we both sell, right? We both connect with clients. We're both looking for new business. We're both looking to add value to our existing clients, but we do it in particular and different ways, even though we may follow a very similar sales process. And the secret is really to understand in your sales team, or for you as a salesperson, really who has which strengths and how they can use that to be far more effective. I can never sell in the same way that Magriet does, and I really have strengths envy around some of the great things she does. Her individualization brings a customization process. Her ability to connect and build relationships is something that I really admire. On the other hand, when we work together, my strategic brings a lot of optionality and helps a client think through their needs in a much more optimal or valuable way. Now, so often when we work together, we can combine her relationship and my strategic in a way that can land a solution, a proposition to a client that makes much more sense. And often in our sales process, and it might be the same for you, is that helping a client understand what they really are wanting to buy. Their need is often the difference between success and failure. And you know, there are some clients that you just intuitively connect with, and other clients you scratch your head and go, ooh, you know, I did the same thing, but I'm just missing them. Why is that? And it may be because you've missed that they may be relationship based. They may want influence. They may want a strategic thinking solution, or they just want somebody that is able to execute, or an interesting combination of those. All of those questions, really, we can answer with the Gallup Sales Strength Report. But before we jump into the detail, let's connect with the PowerPoint slide, and we've got a couple of questions to ask you. So, who is BHG? We call ourselves the Being Human Group, and that should give you an indication of what we are passionate about, and which is the human development, using a positive psychology or strength-based approach to developing people. The BH Group seeks to empower people through self-awareness, being able to connect and understand what you potentially could be great at, and really develop that into your power and edge. Strengths for us is the best opportunity to be the best version of who you are. We want to positively disrupt workplaces because we think a lot of stuff has really just become outdated. COVID has really shown us that more traditional management and development approaches just are simply not as effective as we need them to be, whereas I think Strengths brings that way up to date. And we want to change the way people lead by using the science of their strengths. So we're against this idea that one size fits all, that if you just teach one sales process, this will work. Our view is that everybody's unique, and their selling need and how to connect with them is as unique as they are. To that end, we've trained over 250 coaches across the Africa piece. So whether you need a trained Gallup coach in Cape Town, Cairo, Bloemfontein, Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, we have people all over Africa. And you can see some of the pictures of some of the great coaches that are on our coaching panel. We are members of the ICF, the International Coaches Federation, and of course, we're a Gallup strategic licensee. So you understand that our departure point and what we share with you has the validity, the gravitas, and the research base of a Gallup, and delivered at the standard that is espoused by the International Coaches Federation. And that is our commitment to quality. Thanks, Magriet. So we're going to ask you a little bit about why are you here? We're going to ask you to complete a poll. It's very quick. There's a couple of questions there. If you could just let us know what you particularly would like to get out of the session or the focus in sales that you're particularly interested in, that'll help us customize what we have for you this afternoon in a way that makes sense. Magriet, will you just run the poll for us, please? So what are the most challenging aspects of sales for you in your environment? Is it influencing clients, that you have the best product and service in the market? Is it building great client relationships? Is it meeting client needs? Providing clients with options, or other? Right, we've got one that's jumped in very quickly in building client relationships. Guys, come on, let's warm you up. Answer the poll, please. Influencing, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's it for me as well, Yendor. I think the influencing clients, that's that's certainly a need, it seems.
Yeah, we want to influence clients away from our competitors, right? Okay. Okay, so right, that gives us a great thing. The fantastic news is that I think the Gallup Strength Sales Report will give you great clues and insights about issues of influencing. So influencing and building client relationships, we'll talk a lot about that and help you to focus on that. For the poor person that said other, do you want to just drop that in the chat button if there's something else that's on your mind that we can take into consideration? That'll be appreciated if you have something a little bit more left field for us. Okay, influencing, building client relationships, and other. So I'll just share results, and you can start to see that. Excellent. Right. Influencing and relationship building. Magriet, let's just keep that in mind as we focus and continue. Excellent. Thank you. What's next? Here's the key departure point. Each person is unique with a unique set of strengths. The chances of having the same top 5 strengths in common with each other is 1 in 34 million. 1 in 34 million will give you some type of indication of just how unique each one of us is. If we are unique and we really accept that as a proposition, it makes no sense that people try to sell us all in the same way. Some people will value influence, Others will want relationship connection first. Others will just want execution and the quotation. And then others would want us to really create solutions that are there to design and to add value. Thanks, Alec. We'll have a look at finding and getting customers. That's a little bit out of our scope today, but we'll make the connection for you by talking a little bit about how your strengths can start to think about client opportunities. So we call that an opportunity identification with strengths. So each person is unique with a unique set of strengths. We're going to show you now three video clips. Okay, three video clips. And really, this is a conversation between Jim Collison and a gentleman called Dean Jones. They work really at the Gallup head office in Omaha, Nebraska, and they're really on the forefront of several things. One is, how's the world of work really changing? The second one is, how can I use talents to be really the most effective version in my role? In this case, sales. And then finally, why does strength-based development just actually work for sales? So there'll be three video clips that we'll debrief as we go along. Jim and Dean are the rock stars really of Gallup and lead on developing of sales and sales teams. And I'll give you a bit of insight, and they have a way of explaining things that I think will be useful. The first call to action, or the trigger point about why we're so excited about the CliftonStrengths sales report, is the fact that we think the way people need to sell is changing. Those traditional models of pushing your client or pulling your client or following the 10 steps to sales success, we think are quite outdated. This should come as really no surprise that there's a new role for salespeople because the world of work around us has changed. COVID-19, of course, has hit. We're now working from home. We're now selling virtually, aren't we? No longer can you simply arrive and go play golf with somebody so easily, or pop in for a cup of coffee and shoot the breeze and ask about people's families and then drop off the order form. Now we have every minute counts. Our impact is exceptionally important, and we only have a small opportunity to make the right impression when we start to find the clients that we want. So have a listen to the video clip. Jim and Dean will take us through that, and then I'd like your opinion about how you think the role of the salesperson has changed. Thanks. Magriet.
So the role of somebody who's a salesperson really shifted from somebody that's trying to influence or convince or, could sort of cajole somebody or position the product or service in a particular way. Their role really transformed, right? So the focus really now for salespeople is really how am I of service to the buyer? How do I help really understand the customer or understand them as well or better than they understand themselves? How can I be responsive and facilitate this process of buying, right? How do I build strong relationships so that trusted relationships and provide then expertise that makes that process more valuable or optimizes that process for the person who's doing the buying, right? So there's this shift, if you will, there's this shift in the salesperson really providing a different kind of role. It's sort of an interesting thing. So some of those old kind of sales techniques that salespeople that started long ago learned, those really have become outdated. And really, it's about that now helping salespeople to use their talents and strengths to be able to use their talents and strengths to really be able to help the buyer and kind of facilitate this kind of buying process, right?
There we go. Thanks, Magriet. So Dean's given us a couple of clues around how he thinks the new world of sales is evolving and the new role of salespeople. But let me ask you for your opinion. Have you seen an impact on how people are selling in your environment or your industry? What are some of the changes that you're seeing at your workplace? Anybody would like to volunteer and share a couple of thoughts from their side? Rocher, go for it.
Yeah, it's. I must say, I've seen over the probably the last couple of 2 or 3 years, some of our clients, they really, it's as if they want us to, 110% understand their problems.
Yeah.
We have to place ourselves in their shoes and then come up with solutions, making their world better, making their problems disappear. And I'm seeing that more and more. It's not just selling a product or selling a service, but truly understanding they need. That's the best I can answer. And I think if you can succeed in that, you've got a very good chance of signing up that client. But if not, you're just talking and selling or trying to sell something, and they're not really interested because you're not seeing their problem.
Yeah. And Rashay, if you can get the time to see them, because I don't know if you've noticed that if you ever send out sales information, nobody reads it.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So there's this almost like an existing sales processes don't seem to give you the tools, or almost the crystal ball of trying to see and sort of walk in the client's shoes. I think that's such a great way of thinking about it. It almost reminds me of that strength empathy, which is my number 34, right? So perhaps not it's sort of an interesting connection. Yeah, Rashay, I think that's absolutely right. Guys, anybody else that'd like to give us a bit of sense of how they think sales is changing?
Yeah, if I can just go next. So I think I'm not directly involved in sales, even though I'm sort of involved from an influencing perspective in sales with our sales team. We've got a sales lead, and we've got people that work under her. In fact, I try to invite her to the session. But be that as may be, I interact with them quite a bit, and I think to the point that Roshua actually said, first of all, that is exactly what we're finding in the field as well. Customers have got their problems. They look for someone to lead them on, to explain what is it that they need to do and almost kind of resolve it for them.
Yeah.
Right. And I suppose, there's no straight out right or wrong answer to that. But when it comes to, if you're trying to convince them to buy your product, they want to know, okay, how is it that the product's going to help me resolve these issues in my business?
Yeah.
And you got to then sort of almost put yourself in their situation and say, okay, Mr. Customer, this is where your pain points are. This is how it will help resolve it. So show them the value that it's going to add to their lives, and bring about probably more efficiencies in whatever they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But that's something that we're finding, and many a times, if you're not always influencing, that's why I said one of the things I said was influencing as well. If they're not finding that they're getting the right answers. And today it's become so evident and apparent that you can very easily find information. So gone are the days where your competitors were hidden. Your competitors are now out there. They can just go and do a quick search, find who your competitors are, and start asking the same questions. And so you've got to be sort of on top of your game to make sure you're doing the right things to win the business.
Yeah. Mohammed, I think that's so right. I think we're moving from this idea that my ego as a salesperson to move from I to the client, and that shift I think is so important. And whether you call it empathy or learner or connectedness or individualization, that connection is just so valuable. So thank you, Mohammed. That's I think that just validates exactly what we're saying, and it's always good to get great examples. Anybody else like to just give us a bit of a sense of how they think sales is changing? Okay. In the next video clip, Jim and Dean are going to take the conversation a little bit further and so start to talk a little bit about, right, so if the world of work and sales is changing, how, from a strength point of view, can we start addressing that? Magriet?
I think the piece that is really valuable here is using strengths-based development to help salespeople that at their core develop great self-awareness, so they know who they are. A lot of times in sales, particularly you see sales managers or sales leaders that have a type that they think everybody should be. So you get sales managers that think everybody needs to be hyper competitive, right? So, and the challenge with it is that for the ones that lead with a lot of competition, right, or lead with that really works for them, but it doesn't work for everybody else. And so really helping salespeople to understand, hey, what are my talents and strengths and how do I apply them in a really meaningful way, I think is really great. So
Dean,
yeah,
I've been really privileged to be in on the last couple of years with you as we've interviewed a lot of our sales folks at Gallup. And so I get to see it from behind the scenes and hear the success stories. And I think one of the, just to your point, one of the things I've taken out of that is just the different talents that lead to sales. So we may have some that come through heavy relationship building. We have others that are it's just the facts. We have others that work at more from a almost from a webinar standpoint, a very high level, constantly be giving you some information. So there's all these different ways to approach it.
So I think what Dean and Jim are really putting on the table, which I think is so important, is that salespeople are often not as self-aware as they need to be. They don't understand their unique proposition to the client. And the other point really is that successful salespeople don't come in a typology. So Magriet and myself have worked with sales teams where the most successful salesperson can be that extrovert, in your face, hearty hail fellow that builds those great relationships that you want to play golf with. Sometimes that works, but it doesn't work for everyone. Some of the best salespeople we've seen are being those quiet introverts that when they say something, the client listens. And the question really for us really is, how can we, as sales leaders, differentiate between that and help those people understand what their mysterious X factor around sales is, and to turn up and develop that as a strength, turn up that volume to really make sure that they understand where their success lies. The reality is that selling a nuclear power station solution is different to selling a used car, is different to selling widgets on mobile phones. But at each stage, the client wants something of value. And how do you connect as an individual to that value is a strength-based question. In our third video clip, Dean and Jim are going to just take it one step forward to talk a little bit about why talents lead to successful sales, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the impact. Thanks, Magriet.
A lot of the work I've done is in developing salespeople and business development people and consultants. And there's just particularly at Gallup's, that developing those folks through a strengths-based lens, I think is one of the most powerful ways to be able to really get up under people's talent and to have them succeed. Sales effectiveness is really rooted in human performance. So when somebody's got great sales success, that's really their sales success is really the sum of a set of kind of powerful and effective human interactions. So if you're coaching human beings to interact in a more effective way with other human beings, and the more they're effective, that they are effective, the more likely you're going to have high levels of sales effectiveness. One of the things since being at Gallup is one of the most powerful ways I think to coach salespeople is with strengths. So I've seen a lot of people over the years coach salespeople in different ways. And sometimes it's very process oriented, and I think that there's some value to that. There's lots of different ways that you can focus on making salespeople more effective, right? Strengths, I think, helps people. One is that I think it because it at the end of the day, you want to bolster the confidence of salespeople, because strengths is such a positive and powerful way of really unpacking who you are as a human being. And it's constructive, right? Rather than negative, it's positive rather than negative. I think that really makes a difference. The kind of dimensions of sales development when you're coaching salespeople of strengths-based development, first is that piece where salespeople understand their own strengths. So they develop greater self-awareness. They have a better understanding of their talents and strengths. They can apply themselves in a way that increases and enhances their performance. The other dimension of it is applied to their clients. And I think a lot of times when people talk about strengths-based selling, I think they're talking about this one where salespeople are using strengths as a way to understand their customers and their clients through the lens of strengths, to be more insightful about them, to be more effective at working with them like that. I think the first place to start always is helping salespeople to understand their own talents and strengths. So I think the first piece of it is always, do I know who I am as a person? Do I have self-awareness around that? And can I use my talents and strengths to be able to succeed inside this kind of process, or inside this area, right? Inside this function. That's the place that I always think is most meaningful. I think the second, with strengths-based selling, when people try to use strengths to unpack stuff around their clients, or to work with their clients, I think there's some value there. I think the piece that is really valuable here is using strengths-based development to help salespeople that at their core develop great self-awareness, so they know who they are. A lot of times in sales, particularly you see sales managers or sales leaders that have a type that they think everybody should be. So you get sales managers that think everybody needs to be hyper competitive.
Thanks, Magriet. Okay. What Dean's putting his finger on is helping salespeople be intentional in their interaction between themselves and their clients, either anticipating what their clients may need, or understanding how to use their strengths in a way that gives them confidence to arrive in that interaction fully prepared and equipped to have a great conversation. And it's in the interaction where the secret of strengths can really be applied, and developing that capacity. Great strength salespeople are able to look at a context, look at what needs to happen, and be able to understand which of their strengths will be useful in that context. And that's really what I think the sales report brings to life. One great story about a salesperson that I really admire. A great friend of mine used to be one of the top salespeople in the automobile industry. And one of the great lessons she taught me was the following. She said, every time you get stuck with a client, what you need to do is just reintroduce yourself, because that will freshen up and give your client a view of just the value that you bring, because sometimes relationships can go stale. And her great sort of approach to that was, every time she felt the client was just about to get off the hook, what she would do is book a meeting, put on her jacket, and take a tea bag with her to go and have a great cup of tea with that client. And what it just gives you a sense of is that her great sales expertise was around relationship building. And she just had a way of using that at the right time, either to connect with a client that's going through a hard time and who doesn't like a cup of tea, or a great cup of tea to surprise people, to reinvent what you're trying to do, or just as a way of creating future value. Thanks, Magriet. Back to the slide pack, please. So here are some of the great questions we can ask in the space. How do I get things done to execute for the customer? If a customer is high execution focused and you don't deliver that quotation on time, things are not going to go well. How do I influence my audience to buy? How do I build relationships with customers? And how do I think strategically to advance the sale? The 4 domains or categories of strengths explain how you operate, when you're at your best, and at times when you need help. And there will be times when I work with a client that I will ask Magriet to come in because we just need another perspective. And that's okay. Thanks, Magriet. Strength for us is about a study of performance excellence. Focusing on strengths, development leads to that excellence, being the best version of yourself. Areas of lesser talent will never develop into areas of strengths. So unfortunately, if you flunked maths at high school, you are not going to become an actuary. It's one of those realities of life, but you may find value in other areas. We don't believe that everybody can copy somebody else's success because they are who they are. And of course, if you have an area that you're not interested in, you're not going to change overnight into a superstar. And then finally, we need other people to know our talents and strengths so that we can become the best that is in us. And I loved what Dean said about, let's give our salespeople the confidence they need to perform well. Thanks, Magriet. And so we're not just saying this, we've seen the research that backs this up in terms of sales success. So for those that are working with strengths and strength development, you have 11% higher volume and 6% higher closing percentage, 10 to 19% increase in sales, and you're 6 times as likely to say they get to do what they do best. So rather than trying to force a round salesperson into a square hole, if that's an analogy I can use, this is about really finding the power and edge. I'm going to hand over to Magriet. She's going to take you through an example of the Gallup Strength Sales Report, and she's going to show you her sales report and explain just why it was or is so meaningful to her in terms of the value that she's got out of it from a sales perspective. Magriet?
Thanks, Yendor. So on the screen, you are seeing my personal CliftonStrengths for Sales report. The first thing that we are seeing is that it helps me, or it shows me what my top 10 CliftonStrengths themes are. These top 10 themes are the result of me completing the CliftonStrengths assessment, which is the outcome of a 40-year research project that that was completed with over 2 million people from across the globe, and 27 million people have now completed the CliftonStrengths assessment. So this assessment helps you to discover your talents and your areas of greatest potential, or areas of greatest excellence. As you can see, my number 1, individualization, learner, connectedness, belief, maximizer, as I introduce myself with, and then arranger, responsibility, and the rest. So these are what we call dominant themes. All right. It's the way that I mostly think, feel, and behave that can be productively used. So on the first page, I see my top 10 strengths.
Sorry, Magriet,
Yeah.
I think the first obvious question is, what do all the colors mean?
Yeah, thanks, Yendor. So the purple means executing. And people with executing themes know how to make things happen. They can take a vision and they can just run with it in terms of what needs to happen. Those tangible things that needs to happen. Then the orange, or for some people it's yellow, influencing themes help you to take charge, speak up, and make sure that others are heard. So it's really those are amplifying themes. People with these themes, they they speak up for the team, and they just make sure that this team gets attention, right? Relationship building themes, they are the glue of the team, as we say, they hold the team together. And then people with strategic thinking themes help you to analyze information and make better decisions. And when we put all of these 4 domains together into a strengths grid, then we can really see the story that that it tells about the team. We can see where the team is strong, where they may need some additional assistance, and it can also tell us how you can intentionally use each team member's strengths to get a specific outcome. Okay, all right, moving along. So what really interested me about and got me excited about this specific report is that it also told me how this theme contributes to my success, and sales and having great conversations around people's needs is something that I do on a daily basis to understand how we can support them, to understand, how I can help my client to move forward with certain goals that they have. And when I read through how each of my strengths contributes to my success, I got so excited, and it was so spot on for me. The first one says, you are intuitive and sensitive to a prospect's needs. All right. So I always want to know, what's your needs? Where are you bleeding at the moment? And how can I help you in that? Do I have a resource that can support you? Not only that, this report also shows me where this theme could get in the way of my success. And you know what, this again was so spot on. I actually started laughing because the first point there was your instinct to customize every step of your sales process could hinder your sales success, because I don't like standardization. I like to speak to 10 people on a daily, maybe on a daily basis, or 10 individuals, because I love the interaction. Okay. And I actually, Yendor, I actually suggested last week, can't we just set up one-on-one meetings with each person that registered for this meetup? And it was, I actually had to laugh when I read this, because it was exactly what hindered me. And I'm so glad that we got you on the meetup here. So for each of these talent themes, your top 10 talent themes, you have what the helps and hinders. But not only that, it also shows you how to apply your theme as a salesperson. Where does it give you your power and edge? So it gives you some guidelines to apply it in a very, as I mentioned, intentional way. So there's some wonderful tips. Not only that, it gives you an action plan. It gives you great questions to think about, to contemplate, to discuss. If you're a sales manager, with your team members, if you're a team member or salesperson, discuss it with your team or your manager and see, how can we work together so that each person can be successful in doing and applying these strengths for sales. Okay. Yendor, what's going on in the chat there?
So Eugenia was just asking whether he could get the sales report where he did his assessment on Gallup Access, and that's correct. You don't have to if you've done your CliftonStrengths, you don't have to redo it again. You just purchase the conversion, and it will pop out the sales report. So it's a easy peasy lemon squeezy type of approach. So we always recommend you only do the Clifton Strength Assessment once, whichever version you do, because we think strengths are pretty stable over your lifetime.
Yeah, and happy to report that since yesterday, the assessment is now available to you. All right, for purchase. So I've alluded to the fact that knowing what your team's CliftonStrengths assessments are could help you as a manager to manage them very effective. And I'm going to share what we call a strengths team grid. And on this team strengths grid, you can see the 4 different domains: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. So from first glance, we can see that this team are really strong, or is really strong, in 2 areas. They're great at executing, and they are great at relationship building. So what is the story that this team grid is telling us when we look at they are a sales team? Well, firstly, we can see that they have the talent theme of responsibility very high. So you can be certain that if a client asks for a proposal to be sent by 5 o'clock Friday afternoon, people People with responsibility will make sure that that proposal lands, because people with responsibility wants to keep commitments. Okay, respect of the client is very important to them. Credibility is very important to them. So they will make sure in the sales process that people get what they need to take them to the next step. We also see that this team is or have a lot of related themes. Now, what this tells me is that that this team could have great relationships with their clients, because people with relator build strong and trusted one-on-one relationships. So it shouldn't surprise you if you have someone with relator on your team, that they have a strong relationship with someone on your client's team, that they may go out for coffee, that this person, your team member, could pick up the phone, call the client, and ask them, listen, I hope your child is doing better, because I remember in our last conversation, your son was sick. You know, they build that relationship, and that's a great way for sales managers to rely on people with relationship building themes to build relationships with clients. Or that's a great example. We also see that this team has analytical themes. Now, people with the strength of analytical, they can look at statistics, they can look at numbers, they can look at facts, and they can build a story out of that. So what they can typically do is take numbers from a client. If a client says, listen, my numbers are declining, they can ask great questions, look at the data, and together with people with responsibility, relator, individualization, actually all 34 themes that is represented here, they can build a sales process and a solution process for the client. We also see that, although not a lot, this team has people with the strength of communication, not to be confused with the communication that we see in, or the different definition of communication that we see within the dictionary. But these people can turn thoughts into words within a nanosecond. And it would be great if there's a presentation to be made that the sales manager brings these people closer, these people with communication, to either do the presentation or sit with the sales team in the meeting and then answer questions and get the conversation going. So this is just in a very short nutshell how we look at managing a sales team for success. Now, this is just what we call the name it part. Then there's the claim it and the aim it. How do we use the information that we see on this grid and aim it to certain performance outcomes or performance goals, or getting that increase on the bottom line? Yendor, is there something that you would like to add to what we see on this team strengths grid?
No, Magriet, I think you made a great sort of overview of what a team grid can really look at. And, you know, if you're a sales manager, I think Alex's question was around, how do I find clients? Well, how you are going to search and connect with opportunities in the marketplace is largely going to be dependent on your strengths filter, or how your strengths show up. So people with a lot of strategic thinking will look into the market and identify a customer niche that they think they can add value to in terms of their product and service. And then what they'll do is they'll think a little bit about, how do I connect or what are the types of messages that client base or potential client base wants to hear. And then they will action that and really take a view about how to do that. Others that are relationship built would then go, well, I need to join the local chamber of commerce. I need to network. I need to build great relationships with people that can refer clients to me. Others may have the gift of the gab and be highly influential, and they would be the types of people that would have a big personal brand. They would have a public persona that they build, and that would attract clients to them. And then the final group, if you lead with executing, would be that task list, that if there are 10,000 people on LinkedIn with the job title that I'm interested in, I'm going to find a way to connect with all 10,000. I'm going to execute on that, and I'm going to have a great reach out to each one of them. Or combinations of those approaches depending on your strength pattern. So Alec, how you look at the market is going to be determined by your strengths. And if you play to what you're good at, you're going to connect, identify, and attract the right clients for you. Each of my examples will give you a very different type of sales approach, but they can be effective depending if that is who you are. So to sum up then, and then we'll have a short period of time for some questions and answers, is the sales report is really based on the Clifton dominant strengths. And what we think is quite cool, and Magriet really brought that to life for us, is this idea that you can identify what you're good at. It tells you how, why this could contribute to sales success or help. It could tell you what your blind spot is and how it can derail you. And then it gives you action items. Now, if you're a sales manager, those action items are gold, because you know that when you work with your sales team, you can tell them what to do. You can train them what to do. But unless they can convert it into action items that make sense to them, this becomes quite a difficult thing to do. So we love that component. And then if you're a team lead, who doesn't want to have a look at your strength capacity for the team that you have, and how you as a leader can customize your approach to get the best out of each one of them so that you are successful as a team lead. Guys, I just want to be very conversant of time. We literally got 3 minutes left. So we're going to open it up for any questions that you may have regarding the Gallup sales report and all the way that we think about and develop salespeople. Supporting the report, we would do debriefs. We have some workshops. We do a lot of sales coaching if that's the support you need. But really today, it's the hero of the session is the Gallup's strength sales report. Right, guys, open up to any questions, anything that we can answer right now. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer. I know Rocher volunteered before, but I'm going to ask him again. Rocher, what did you think about the Gallup sales report?
Yendor, I think it's really good. As well, I'm not directly involved in sales. However, I do play a supporting role in sales. Most organizations, whether you like it or not, is a sales organization.
Yeah.
You have to sell to somebody, something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not in business. So understanding individuals' strengths will obviously help me guide them, and also the teams, because sometimes you just need to know, sending the right person, somebody that's very analytical when the client requires number crunching and numbers, how to resolve manufacturing issues. And sometimes you need to know whether you need somebody that can do a proper presentation to the client, and sending somebody that is a good communication is very high, showing illustrations and
yeah,
I almost said prentjies.
Okay.
But yeah, so in that way, this is absolutely excellent. And I think it will be a great benefit to any person involved in sales. Absolutely.
Yeah. Rocher, I mean, when I heard that you were coming aboard, I mean, one of the things that you could really do is, what a great value add to your clients where they have sales teams, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I mean, can you imagine, not only are you building a great relationship, but you're adding value to what I think keeps the lights and water on, right? And I'm sure that you also place, I don't know if you place sales teams as well, but it could be a nice differentiator.
Yes, true. I mean, in each office, I've seen sales positions, so it will also even help in the interview process when you're looking for specific sales people.
Okay. Yeah.
And that will also help a lot.
Excellent. Okay, so some really nice clues. Thanks, Rashad. Appreciate it. Any other questions, or anybody want to add something before we sign off? Guys, it's 5 o'clock, so we're going to drop dead here, but we're going to hang around. So if you have a drop dead and you have to barrel off, we'll follow up with you. Thank you very much for your time. And if you have to disappear, we get it, but we're going to be around for a couple of minutes. So if you have things that you want to share with us, and you're welcome to stay. Eugene, I see you off mute. Go for it.